Hi, my name's Glyn and I'm the lead administrator on webforums.com. I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks on creating a basic layout. The first thing I'm going to do obviously is create a new page in Dreamweaver. Now, you don't have to use Dreamweaver, in fact it's preferable that you don't. I'm just doing it here for quick showing of the elements that you could use if you had it. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw what they call, or what Dreamweaver call, an AP div. To the size and the width that I want. I can adjust it or change it however I want from the WYSIWYG. Then I'm going to go over here into the code and I'm going to have a look. You can see it's created the div elements there, and it's also created a div tag. Now basically what it means is that it's whatever goes into here, it will produce the elements over there. So I'm going to actually remove Dreamweaver's standard stuff just so that just so I can show you the proper way to build a site. Now what that leaves us with is a box not placed anywhere in particular. So what we need to do now is I need to center it so that it centers no matter what your screen size. So I'm going to put in margin 0 and then auto. Basically what they're saying is automatically place it in the center, because the center is 0 of the screen. I'm going to rename the div. I'm going to rename it header just so I know what it's for. And this one as well. It always has to be named the same, so that when we look again, it's in the middle, and we have our margin both sides. So you know it's coming up with margin auto 114px. It's just for your information how much margin there is on the left and the right there. So it's both the same. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is create a wrapper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this div, paste it, and rename it wrapper. Obviously the element isn't there yet on the screen because we haven't created our CSS for it yet. I'm going to copy header, I'm going to paste it. Again, we want it kept in the middle, so we're leaving that there as it is. We're leaving the width because we want it the same size as the header. And the height, it's not really important at this moment. In future tutorials I will be showing you how to change that so that you can use more dynamic languages. So anyway, let's rename this one wrapper. And we will look again and we have, well, basically an exact match. The only difference is the elements are named differently. Now I'm going to go in between this gap here and I'm going to press enter, enter, enter. Doesn't matter how many times you do it. If you do it, I just do it so that I know where I am, what I'm doing. And then I'm going to copy this div again and I'm going to paste it in here. Now notice between this div, so whatever's between that arrow and this arrow will remain inside this box. So I'm going to create a menu on the left. Let's create the div for it, the CSS for it, should I say. Now let's rename that left. I don't want it to be centered, obviously, because we want it over to the left, don't we? So I'm going to do a float. Notice as I type in Dreamweaver, the elements sort of appear, if you like, and you know I can choose from a list if I wanted to. So what we now have is we now have another box that's exactly the same size as the wrapper. So of course when we look at it, we won't see it. So what I do is I just change the width to 200. We should do it. Just so you can see it. There we go. There's the new div. Okay. If we click on the wrapper, you can see what I mean by all contained within that div there. So let's move on to our next element. Let's move on to our main content, where we want our main content placed within the wrapper. So if I just create a new div, I'm sure you can get this by now. And I'm going to float it right. Now obviously the width is still 200, so I've got an exact match as this, only on the other side here. So what we want to do is obviously we want to make this wider. So what I usually do is I usually take the wrapper length, or the width shall I say, and I deduct the other elements that I've got in there. So in this case my other element is the left, so I'll deduct that, and then maybe I'll leave a little bit of gap. So if, say for example, if I didn't want to leave any gap, I'd put in 547, because I've taken that and I've deducted that, and what we'll end up with is that basically. But because I want to leave a little bit of a gap, I'm going to say 535, which might leave a little, there we go, a little bit of a gap there. We can also do things like margin top, margin bottom. Still, even though we've used the element margin here, margin top and margin bottom can be classed as a different element. So if we look at our header again, we can create a little bit of space in this gap here, just so that it's, it's not touching. It's, as I say, when you're designing, it's personal choice. It's what what you've designed for. So let's go for margin bottom. Double dot, and then I'm going to add 5px of margin in there, and always close it off with the semicolon there, and it has to be separated by the brackets, the curly brackets, and there's our little gap there. So I'm going to create a footer now. For that purpose I'm going to come out of the div, so I'm going to move that div up, go past the div, so that everything that's there is contained within that wrapper, that box. If you didn't do that, your layout will be all over the place. So I'm going to just copy this one and name it footer. Now I'm going to create the CSS for it. But that's not going to leave it very good, is it? Because I've still got the elements float right and the width is wrong, obviously. So I'm just going to steal the header here, or the header sizes, and the margin here. Right. Actually, we don't need to do that. Let's do this. And then, there we go. Right. So we now have, we don't need the margin float. We now have our new element, which will be our footer. Now we don't want the height that big, do we? So we're only going to go for 50px in this one. There we go. I'm also going to add a bit of margin on the top, just so it's away from the wrapper. And there we go. There's a very basic layout, using floating divs, margins, containers. Hopefully you've learnt a thing or two, and if you have any problems, please visit webforums.com. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.